Welcome to Sportsbookreview.com. It's that time of year when the NFL 2020 regular season win totals have come out, and we're going to go to the AFC South. I'm with Drew and I'm with Donnie. And Donnie, I'm going to start with you. The Titans, shaky start last year. They finished with some rattle.
Super impressive last year. One of those teams that if you were on them early and you saw it coming with Ryan Tannehill jumping the gun, I believe Drew actually had that last year. Couldn't wait to get Marcus Mariota out of that offense to let the chains rip, and they played very well down the stretch, a team that could be mighty impressive. And look, they're going to bring back a lot of the same elements that they had last year. Gave Tannehill a big contract, also franchise tag Derrick Henry at running backs. You're going to get a lot of the same looks. And I got to tell you, you used to like to be on a team before they actually hit that hot streak and get hot because maybe the value is burned up. But in a division where one of the head coaches we're going to talk about seems like he'd rather dismantle his football team, to me, this is the lead dog in the division. We'll see if they get a ramped-up schedule and how they handle it. But again, you're talking about maybe jumping on a year late when the value was the previous year. But you're also talking about a division in flux where a couple teams I thought could have really ramped up. And I think they made the wrong moves, and the only benefit of those moves is going to be to the Titans. I think the Titans are the best team in this division. Therefore, they should be able to hit their team total.
Yeah, I agree. And Drew, I've got Titans at 9, Texans at 8, the Colts at 8, and the Jags at whipping boys at 5.5.
So I don't hate the way that those are sequenced. I think Titans as the top dog is fair. But I agree that I don't know. I just feel in general that the AFC South is an afterthought. I don't think any of these are realistic contenders to win the AFC or to push the Chiefs or the Ravens. I think I think all four teams have made decisions in this free agency period that have set back their franchises. I don't love the Titans giving away Jarrell Casey was kind of strange. They gave Tannehill. I thought that contract was fair, but we really don't know what to expect out of Tannehill this year. They were equal. They were kind of competing forces here when you look at his data from the 2019 season. There were clear he was playing very well. Like he elevated that team's performance with his ability to complete passes down the field, especially along the sidelines, and they have the wide receiving core that meshes fairly well with that. And so that should be able to carry into this season in terms of a predictive stat. And I would expect Tannehill probably gives us top 10 quarterback type of numbers this year. On the other hand, they were impossibly good in the red zone over the second half of the season. Like there's just no way that they can continue to score touchdowns at the clip that they were scoring from week 8 until the end of their playoff run, which to me at least would spell some regression in terms of total scoring from the offensive standpoint. And then if you combine that with any kind of a slippage on their defensive side, because, their defense had some players that I thought played above their talent level. They had some luck in terms of turnovers. And I can see a scenario here where the Titans, win the AFC South by going 9-7. But I agree generally with Donnie that this is this should be your proverbial favorite to win the AFC South. And they definitely have, the kind of the most competent combination of coach, quarterback, and GM when you look across the four franchises.
Well, we're on the same level. I like that, Drew. I like that because I'm going to go to the Texans. And we said I think we've got a Dallas situation here. We've got Bill O'Brien, who's general manager, like you just said. He's a coach, like you just said. I know he's got too much power. And then he goes and says, see you later to DeAndre Hopkins.
Absolutely brutal. We're going to be talking about probably 4 years how poor of a job Bill O'Brien has done as a general manager for this franchise. It's like this will be kind of the case you think of, the example you bring up when you want to talk about a coach who is given the responsibility of GM and completely mismanaged his team and is setting back his team, and because of how poorly he's managed the roster, and the degree to which they've stepped back specifically this offseason. But even beyond this, like, they've given away years of first-round draft picks at this point to get Laramie Tunsil. They didn't get a first-round draft pick from Jadeveon Clowney. They didn't get a first-round draft pick for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, these were two of your absolute across the entire league outside of quarterbacks. Those guys are top 20 assets in the NFL. You couldn't even get a first-round draft pick for them. So it's really something to watch over the next 3 seasons, probably, how much this team kind of collapses. But it has, I think Donnie brought up or maybe it was you, Flash, brought up the comp to the Cowboys. I would actually say they have more of a whiff of like the Seahawks kind of, because I think Watson is he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, period. I don't think you can really argue that. And when you have someone who's that good in a league overall where the quarterback position is such an outsized influence in the overall wins losses, he could get this team to 9 wins, just on the back of his play, in and of itself. And granted, he doesn't have Hopkins to throw to, but they still have some weapons to throw to. It's a downgrade from last year, but Watson himself is a winner. He is, he has just kind of like Russell Wilson, like he's just that good that he can elevate your team into wins when they should otherwise be losing. But there are a lot of cracks. There are a lot of red flags. And, the stuff that Michael Irvin was floating about what Bill O'Brien was saying to Watson and how he was treating him, that kind of stuff is the fastest way you lose a locker room. And if teams around the United States or, teams around the NFL are all, kind of laughing out loud publicly about the job that Bill O'Brien is doing as a general manager. And if he now feels the pressure of this David Johnson trade, he has to lean on him especially hard just to make himself not look as stupid. Like, he has to double down on this terrible decision. David Johnson is a player that probably was going to get cut, and he gave up one of your best assets for him. Like, it all is mind blowing. And I think, the fact that he's going to have to double down and play Johnson, the fact that the team likely is going to quit on him at some point because of the way he treated Hopkins, like, all of these are huge red flags. And, it's going to come unwound at some point spectacularly for the Texans, and it may be this season. And I'll probably take an under position at some point. Hopefully, hopefully this gets bet up a little bit. We can get some, or maybe I'll just take some alternate unders when we see those. Like, I'll get under like 6 or under 7, right? Because I'd rather get a bigger payday than right now betting under a number that's probably pretty reasonable, pretty fair with Watson likely elevating some aspects of the team performance.
Donnie O went on record and just said, I would have fired him after last year, mismanagement. He's a fish up a tree. And now he's general manager as well. He proves that his first major decision is laughable. I mean, a 15-year-old could have said, no, please don't do this. You're doing the wrong thing. But stubbornness. And he's now got too much power for me. And yeah, we've got Cobb and you've got Fuller, Stills, Carter. But I don't think he's addressed what his major problem is. And that's the man in the mirror. And the number is 8.
Yeah, I've always been a Bill O'Brien hater, and it's kind of odd because it just seems like he's in an autopilot division for himself, especially coming into this year. If he just sticks with that wide receiving core and they stay healthy with their quarterback, they win the division. And he goes and messes it up and doesn't even approve it, saying, you know what, we can't pay this guy. I got 2 first-round picks back for this guy. We're really going to retool. I'll get us a top flight in a monster draft that's going to be for wide receivers, and then we'll spend the capital and try to prove our team elsewhere. Now you look at that leaky secondary, but let's not forget the whole Bill O'Brien, case study that we can have. You're talking about a division where his team nailed the quarterback spot with a franchise guy that's going to be really good for 10 years. You're talking about a Jacksonville Jaguars team that blew their top draft pick in Bortles. You're talking about a team like the Tennessee Titans that blew their top pick with Marcus Mariota. You're looking at the Colts who had an injured Andrew Luck who eventually retired. Like Bill O'Brien, the luckiest guy on the planet when you talk about coming around like right. St. Patrick's Day. And he's messing it all up. This team comes back the same exact team from last year and steps on the field. Their team total is higher. They're favored to win the division. They'll probably get into the playoffs again. And then Bill O'Brien can coach them very poorly in the playoffs and they'll have a quick exit. But this is one of the easiest teams to manage. And it just seems like He's getting more power by the day, and nobody can figure it out. An autopilot situation that's messed up. Maybe he gets out of there, but I just can't believe that. And then the tea leaves come out here, Flash. We're talking about, well, he wanted 19 or 20. But that's what you pay one of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL. It wasn't like, well, he was going to ask for $36 million. No, he was asking for what he's going to be worth in his next contract. An unbelievable bad decision, and I think Drew brings it up best. When you're looking at guys and you hear some of the tea leaves from the Detroit Lions and what's going on, if you don't believe in your coach, they're just cashing paychecks after that saying, he ain't going to be here next year again. Let me just get paid and we'll see what happens. That is bad across the board. Downplay here for the Houston Texans this year for me.
Yeah, it sounds like we love the Texans, but we can't go near them because of their coach and general manager and anything else he wants to be, tea lady. So most talented group could well be the Colts, Donnie, and they're at 8.
Look, I love the Colts, and I always bring it back to last year, and I think Drew was even on this game. The Colts were awesome to me in one game they actually lost when they're down to their third-string quarterback on the road in Pittsburgh, and Frank Wright is dialing up everything that's working. They weren't able to hold on, and Pittsburgh ended up winning that game, but those are the type of games I look at the Colts and be like, they are so lucky to have Frank Wright here. They are built completely on the front line to protect the quarterback. They have weapons at wide receiver. They have young, expendable talent at running back, and they're slowly building that defense into a really good player. And I say to myself, if they can just get the quarterback right in this spot, I really want to buy on them. And they go out and they get Phillip Rivers. It's not 10 years ago. It's not 5 years ago. And I'm saying to myself, like, you know what? Frank Reich is really smart. And again, they're going to be able to protect him. But give me a guy with mobility. Give me a guy with a big arm that can hit T.Y. Hilton 45 yards down the field when he's constantly running by defensive backs. And I look at this and saying, this team should run away with the division. We've watched Phillip Rivers the last 3 years. He throws punts as a quarterback, and they reached out. It wasn't like one of those things, Flash, where you're saying, hey, 1 year, $10 million, let's draft a quarterback and move 25. Now, I know they have a lot of money in the salary cap, and money is different for each team. But it's almost like we finally got our guy at quarterback, and I'm scratching my head going, if you would have just given me some mobility with a big arm, I would be all over the Colts. It's a shame that they now have a governor back there at quarterback that it's going to be like, oh, man, what a bad pass he had. Oh, I can't believe he couldn't get out of the way of this one. They're so leaky at quarterback right now with an older guy, and I know Phillip Rivers is like, if this was 3 years ago, I'd say, you know what? This is a good move. I can't buy into the Colts because I'm not a believer in Phillip Rivers, even if he does look like me.
No, I've got to agree with you on what I saw last year, Drew. His arm looked to be on the decline.
Yeah, it's dead. I don't think it's coming back. I mean, crazier things have happened. You know, he could get into this offseason and be like, you know, do some kind of, health and nutrition program where he comes back and has a super strong arm. Like that sort of stuff happens sometimes when you have quarterbacks at the end of the cycle. But I pretty much agree with every single thing Donnie just said. That was top to bottom, correct assessment. Frank Reich's the best coach in this division, and it's not close. I thought Chris Ballard was the best GM, especially just, he did some nice stuff, but I don't get this. I don't get bringing Phillip Rivers in. I just don't get it. And this has all of the whiffs of Joe Flacco to the Broncos last year. He's going to start first 5-6 weeks. Maybe he gets a weird injury. They pull him. I'm mostly watching to see what the Colts do next. Are they going to draft a quarterback, kind of late first round look, try to get, a guy who, maybe they get a guy who slides in the 20s, something along those lines. Like, they have a lot of assets. They did a nice job of stockpiling, draft capital, and they have so much money to spend that they could go out and get a guy like DeForest Buckner, who should be a monster on that defense. Their defense should be good. Except for the quarterback position, I love everything about this franchise and the head coaching staff. It's just a matter of, how does it all go down with Phillip Rivers? Is he 0-6 when they finally pull the plug on it? And, that right there takes me out of betting they're over. I think we got to treat them like we treated the Broncos last year, and just watch the early season misery play out. And, wait for the right time to buy in when the market has quit on them.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole Colt story in a nutshell. I mean, you got to wait for Rivers either to get injured or they've had enough and actually admit to themselves that they've made the wrong decision. And does Jacoby Brissett, does he stay around? They want to see one more season? And obviously out of adversity comes triumph. But there's no triumph in the team we're going to, who's going to be bottom of the AFC South, Drew, and that's the 5.5 Jags.
Yeah, this is your leading contender in the clubhouse, in my opinion, for fewest wins across the NFL next season. This is the speed and that they were able to take apart this unbelievably talented defense is amazing. Like I cannot believe that that all of the talent that they had on the defensive side of the football just 2 years ago is pretty much gone, except for a handful of young players who they're going to sit on. But one or two blue chips isn't enough to make this defense get you in contention for winning. They're going to war, I guess, with Gardner Minshew as their first option at quarterback. This sets up everything looks to me like this is going to be just a brutal losing season. They're probably going to fire Marone, and they're going to hire a new coach next year and probably draft Trevor Lawrence. That's my guess as to sort of their vision of the franchise at this point, with having kind of cleaned out the Tom Coughlin regime last year. I think the GM that they put in place is this guy that probably can rebuild the franchise, but I think it's going to be a clean sweep after this year. And I would be surprised if the Jaguars get anywhere close to their 5.5 total. This isn't like a slam dunk under. We really don't know. It's tough to get under 5.5, but 3-13 is where I project the Jags this year.
Yeah, I still fancy it is easy to get under the 5.5 with this group, especially when they lose their top man on the defensive side of the ball, Donnie.
It's amazing when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and what they could have been only a few years ago. You're talking about the best tandem at cornerback in the NFL. You're talking about Saxonville. It wasn't too long they were talking about the Saxonville Jaguars that will break you down with just 4 men and then cover you like a blanket in the secondary. And everybody's going, hey, Ngakoue's still there. He's not going to be there any more than, a week and a half at this point? They're stacking up draft picks, which is great for the future. This almost reminds me a little bit of what the Oakland Raiders did in the past, saying, you know what? We know we're not going to be in Oakland. So if these fans get mad 2 to 3 years, we're going to have a stockpile and we're going to be off to Las Vegas. Those guys will love us. It's going to be brand new down there while we get it together. Same way with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are angling to be that first team over in the UK. They don't care about what goes on in Jacksonville. Let's stockpile. So when we get there, we'll be in position to win and sell boxes and season tickets and make a lot of money. This has all the imprints of that. Yeah, Minshew Mania is a lot of fun last year, but now all of a sudden when you're expected to actually carry the football team, how's that going to work out? They are deplete of talent, and I just don't see how it's going to work out. When you send the white flag from the front office that says, you know what? Don't know if my coach is going to be here. We really don't care about all the talent on the defense that was there. They're gone. Let's lean on this quarterback who's cheap. We blew a lot of money in Foles. We don't want to spend out there. Let's just wait a couple years, and when we eventually go to UK, we're going to be a really good football team. Hang on. It's terrible news if you're a Jacksonville Jaguar fan who they made you buy back in and say, we're going to be here, strong roots in Jacksonville. Look at this team. Let's build with us. And they completely dismantle it and tear it down. They're going to move in a couple years. This team has all the writings of a 5-win or less team, and that's just the way it stands.
Yeah, I think you don't worry about the Titans, the Colts, or the Texans. You just take your money and stick it on the Jags under and then not give a flying monkeys what goes on in that AFC South, because none of them are going to get you to the Super Bowl. So the only way you're going to earn any money out of them is to go with the Jags under. So that's the AFC South sorted, just because we've smashed the Jags and the Jags under. Drew, Donnie, you take care, and I'll see you again soon.